Today, we have a great way for you to get more sales right now with the current traffic that's already taking place in your business. Sales Ascender, Chris here. Hey, thank you for joining us with the Spotlight. We continue to bring you real business owners are solving real problems, getting real results. This is the place to get that information. Today, we get to dive deep into paid advertising. There's current traffic that you're running and you can get more sales. There's things that you're missing that's costing you money right now. In fact, the more that I talk, the more money you're going to lose. So let's go to the expert today, Scott, that's going to save us here. Scott, how's it going?
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, thank you for coming out, spending some time with us. I know this is a very special Spotlight conversation that we're having because this is the very first one where we actually have a presentation.
Yep, and we can jump around, but I wanted to keep myself on track because I have a lot I want to share. So I think that's great. Yep.
And we don't have to get right into it. I just was letting viewers know that we haven't done this yet, but you came prepared, and I want them to feel and know the level of professionalism that you bring to the table. They'll get to know this for themselves very soon. As I ask you a few questions, we get to know you a bit before we jump into it. But I wanted them to know up front what they're getting into. So that all said, you've been focused in this area of traffic, and we're going to go more granular as we talk. But how did you originally get into this?
We got into this when we started in business years and years ago, and I'll age myself. And we were in the fitness business and gyms, and we started out eBay, and then after eBay, when Google first came into being, and before it was Google, and we realized real quick that in order to make anything really happen at volume, at scale, we had to be able to drive traffic. But then becomes the problem, right? In order, if you're paying for traffic, you have to be able to convert that traffic into buying customers. It's why when the internet started, it was like this aha moment, traffic plus conversion, right? It was this big thing, right? And I think from our perspective, it just set us off on a path to focusing on where we really had the ability to make changes. And that's on your page. You can only, and people are realizing this now big time, we can get into it, but you really have no real control over the traffic sources and who's coming in and what they're banning and what they're allowing and how their algorithms change and competition. But what you do have complete control over is what takes place on your page and on your funnel. I guess I'll just leave a tidbit. I don't think it has to be as difficult as people make it out to be. So it doesn't matter, because I know you have a broad group of listeners and people that follow you. Some may be top copywriters or hire top copywriters. Some may be doing it all by themselves, and none of that matters. You have the ability of improving the conversions on your page, and that's what I'd love to dive into today.
I think there's a massive objection that we need to address head on.
Sure.
And it's, well, paid ads work for some people, but the truth is, for majority of people, they don't work very well, meaning they cost thousands, and unfortunately, a lot of times, tens of thousands of dollars, and there's just not the real result. The objection is not paid ads work or don't work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it takes a lot to actually get paid ads to work very well. It actually takes a lot of work. And this idea of split testing, but doing it quickly and efficiently so you don't lose all that time and money, becomes very important. Can you speak to just the objection of what's the best approach to getting into making paid ads effective as fast as possible?
I think that's great. So that is a broad question, but I'll try to give you as succinct an answer as I can. First of all, I'm passionate about paid traffic, but it can be any kind of traffic. So I would make the argument that if you're in business, you're getting traffic of some sort. I'd like to start there. It doesn't matter whether you're getting affiliate traffic. Sure. It doesn't matter whether you're getting referral traffic, warm traffic, you have your own email list or whatever. Ultimately, for most businesses, you're sending them to a page to have them take action of some sort. So I'd like to start that we're all on the same boat. To the specific objection that you raised, which I think is a great one that we hear a lot too, what does it take to make cold traffic work? And I think too many people are focused on courses, the big, loophole of the day, and focusing on metrics. And I'm going to simplify this. And I had a slide here in the show, which we'll get to and explain this a little bit more. But what I wanted to be able to point to your thing is there's really two things that make paid traffic work.
Yeah.
There's your front end creative, that's your ad, and what takes place on your landing page. And what we're able to do, and what I'd like to show people is, first of all, too many people make too many assumptions. So they maybe do their research, they probably don't do their research well enough. And I'm doing that, stating that based upon experience. We have, 7, 8-figure companies that don't know their customer as well as they do. So we teach people as part of, it's not what we do, we help people figure that out. I think that's a huge part. The other part is, whether you're hiring a 5-figure copywriter, or you're doing it yourself, or you're trying to put up the page, most people are making a tremendous amount of assumptions. And those assumptions come from a lot of areas. They come from what they see somebody else doing, what they see they're hacking some other funnel without really understanding what's going on. And so we are big believers, and you sort of tip the hat here, is that in collecting data, and collecting data fast. So the simple answer is you have to test. You have to test a lot more stuff than people think that you would normally test. So this isn't about split testing, simple, which we'll get into, headline A versus headline B in the slow boat with small little jumps. You need a way of being able to run a lot of different experiments, because ultimately, even if you're, and we give some examples, a 5-figure copywriter getting paid and you're the expert in the fitness space, you still, or you're paying a 5-figure copywriter, which is probably more common and maybe even there, but this will illustrate, it doesn't matter. They're taking their best shot at the dark. They are what we call, creating leaky buckets, right? In other words, everybody from people that are doing, 7 figures a month to people that are brand new are leaking a ton of money. And so to your point, the simple answer is, when you're buying cold traffic, your goal is to buy at break even, right? Which we can talk about, or hopefully many people a little bit of profit so that you can build out that back end. And I think that the mistake they make is focusing on the wrong items, thinking that it's all about the algorithm or some special trick on Facebook or Google or YouTube or native. It really doesn't matter, when really all the power and all the leverage is what's taking place on their page. And they just need to know the proper way to approach that page. And nobody's really ever taught it.
I'd love to dive into that proper way.
Let's do it.
All right. I'm curious to see this.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate that. So I tend, as you know, so you can stop me and ask questions as always in the conversation. I tend to talk fast, but I call this how to make a lot more money from your traffic. And so what we're talking about, just to clarify this, is regardless of where your traffic is coming from, whether that traffic is coming from YouTube, Facebook, Google Display, affiliate traffic, your email list, what we do here, and I'm going to show this, is we are able to help increase conversions by 30%, 50%, 1x, you'll see 2x, 3x, allowing businesses to scale on cold traffic and grow their business and just give them the freedom to make an impact on the world. And that's what we're talking about here. And I know that that's a broad, big, bold claim, and it sounds a little bit outrageous, but as we walk through this, I think that will come into focus. So we talked about this, you brought it up. We believe that and this is the leaky pig, I guess, not the leaky but basically it's the way there, because we have in our do it for you business, we have a lot of businesses that already have successful cold traffic, right? They run the spectrum, but from people that are brand new to people that are running, again, 7 figures a month. And the same mistakes continue to happen over and over again. So if you're already successful, the goal is to become more successful and scale. If you are just starting out or want to get started, you can follow this to plug those holes. And what we're going to show you can continue to improve over not just a day or a month or a one time, but over years. And you can continue to make what's happening, what that experience is on the landing page throughout your funnel, better and better. And the greatest part is, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, is with us, everything we're talking about is when these prospects that you're paying for are voting with their wallet or their pocketbook. So there's no guesswork here. So I thought, that what maybe the best way to get started is to really show people what results look like, because we can do a lot of talking, but I think there. But before we do, if it's okay, I'm sort of going to break every rule that normally for presenting and for talking like this and having conversations like this, I'm going to talk about math for a second, but it's only 5th grade math. And I'll do it to bring the whole picture into focus. And I know it's not there. So I'm just going to fly through this. And the only purpose is just before we get started for people in their minds to have an understanding of what having a little bit of this leverage actually does to your business. So again, these are fake numbers, but let's say you're spending $5,000 a day on traffic. I realize there are people here sending 0, and there are people maybe that are spending, tens of thousands. It doesn't matter. This is just an example. At 50 cents per click, that would be 10,000 unique visitors to your site. If you have a conversion rate of 1%, you're making 100 sales a day. Average order value, $100. That means you're making $10,000 a day in this hypothetical example. You can scale up, you can scale down depending upon what you do. A lot of people we speak with at times, this is their scenario. A 5% bump in conversions doesn't sound that impressive, right? It's not wow. It's really 1% to 1.05%. But let's take a look at what that means to your bottom line. And we're going to talk about things a lot larger than this. That would mean 500 more dollars. Sorry, apologize. That would mean an additional $500 a day on the front end only. And I'll clarify that in a minute. So we're looking at 500 a day is 15,000 a month is $180,000 a year from a small, in this hypothetical example, 5% increase, which isn't big, on your front end only. And for people listening, front end is clarified just what you're making in the funnel that you're presenting here. Hopefully and presumably, most of your listeners, most of your audience have a back end, have other stuff where they can either ascend or sell them more of. And it doesn't matter whether, again, we're talking e-commerce, coaching, software, the same principles apply. So I want you to keep in mind, just before we get started, that a simple 5% jump in conversions, 1 to 1.05, can mean in the front end only 180,000. In the right kind of businesses, you're talking about tripling that easily, right? Most people make most of their money on the back end. So I wanted to share, and I had my team pull out a couple of, these are current active real tests. And it doesn't matter, and we don't have to get bogged down in the numbers. We just talked about 5%. So I want to show everybody really where the power comes in about what I'm about to share. This 101% increase in conversions, that, for the record, is doubling somebody's business. This is 111% increase in conversions. This is 163% increase in conversions. And I want to make clear that these results, and I'll explain why, are coming from companies who already paid copywriters, who already thought their traffic was optimized fully. And this is the kind of increases. And I'm bringing that up because you made a very important point at the beginning of our conversation here. Well, people just don't believe, right? Or they don't think it's their easiest path. Well, these are tougher, right? They've already been gone over by some of the best people in their respective industries, or at least they thought they did. So I just want you to keep in mind that if they have this much room, or we'll go back to our analogy, and this much leaky pig instead of the leaky bucket, if they have that, imagine if you're just starting out and have an offer, what that looks like for you. So I'll fly through some of this because I want to get to some specific mistakes, and I promise to give everybody that's listening the ability, some real action takeaways that they could use. But there's only 2 things that matter in traffic, and we let this spill the beans when we were talking earlier. It's not a special bidding method. It's not some loophole. It's not found in some class. What really everybody should understand, and if this is their only takeaway, is that there's 2 things that matter: the ad creative and what takes place on your landing page. We could dive in this in a whole other conversation, but I'll just leave it to be that whether you're Google, you're YouTube, you are Facebook, it doesn't matter. The networks are becoming more and more run on AI, meaning they are able to find your customers. So it's not going to be found in any special course. You need to understand where your leverage is. Your leverage is on the pages you have control of. And so when you do, what happens, and I'll just do this to illustrate so we can move on, when you convert more, just to be clear, your sales go up. Your cost per acquisition, that's CPA, how much it costs you to acquire your customer or your lead, goes down. Your return on investment goes up. Your average order value goes up. You get increased stability on any of the networks, because not only are you giving them what they want, which is ultimately you to be able to scale and pay for clicks, but you're sending, by doing this, all the sub-metrics like time on site and bounce rate and all this other stuff that all these networks look at that's invisible to us. You're sending all positive signals and you're able to scale. So this is a quote that I love that I will share. Amateurs optimize traffic, experts optimize conversions. And this really, if, again, I keep saying one takeaway, but if people take one big thing away, this is how you make cold traffic work. This is really how you make any traffic work. This is how you make your affiliate traffic work better. It's all relies actually on the conversion. So I'm going to jump in and give and share, if it's cool, and stop me and we can talk about these, some common mistakes that we see.
Sure.
That hopefully there. So mistake number one, observing. It sounds kind of crazy, right? There is what we call observational and optimizational. So observational is things that obviously you see. Google Analytics, surveys, talking with customers, when you go to some event or hear some group, right? All that is inputs. That's observational. Optimizational is really when you're testing and people are actually voting with their pocketbooks. And the way I like to explain this is, based upon truth, is that if you ask people, they will lie. So this is a broad example. If you ask people why they brush their teeth, they will give you answers like, I want to prevent gum disease or bone loss, or I don't want cavities. When in reality, they're brushing their teeth before they go out on a date or before they're with the wife because they want fresh breath and they want to smell. I mean, people do not give you the real answers. So all of these things that we see around us are only observations, and they can be used in testing, but they're only observations. So what we like to point out is that the biggest flaw we see is people just guessing and throwing stuff on their pages. And I'll leave a tidbit. One of our biggest tests that we do for clients over and over is the invisibility test. Here it is, there it's not. Meaning people put stuff on their page that if they tested removing from their page is not helping conversions, it's hurting conversions. So we'll talk about something called semantic separation, but I think the big takeaway here is we see businesses of all sizes that create what I would call a spaghetti bowl full of a mess for them by just assuming and using observational tools, whatever they may be, to add to their page. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Cool. Mistake number two sounds also very counterintuitive for somebody to hear talking about testing, right? Split testing. And I know this sounds really odd, but I'll explain it really quickly. So we all know that testing is the key to improving landing page conversions, right? That's been around long before we were around old direct mail. We all conceptually get that the way you truly tell is to test. But the way most people are testing just doesn't produce results. And I'll give some examples in a moment as we go across this. But split testing is slow, it's cumbersome, it's inaccurate in many cases. And one of the little known secrets in the conversion rate optimization industry is that when they get a win, most of the time it crosses. And I'm going to share, so I'll keep this moving, why that happens and what your listeners or anybody that's interested in moving, to cold traffic or just improving what they have, what they should be looking for and why that is. Mistake number three is ignoring the relationship. And again, I'm going to share with you a quick story, but this is from our experience, a huge one. So I'm going to share a quick story that I love. It has nothing to do with marketing, but it will have everything to do with this. So in the 1930s in Yosemite, they removed the wolves. I guess they felt they were causing damage, they were causing issues. And make a long story short, when they removed the wolves, the elks did well. The elks did really, really well. And so they started, multiplying. They started eating the willows, which caused all kinds of deterioration in the streams and issues. And then when they added them back, I think it was in the 70s, all of this started to come back, right? A lot of the grasses and the flowers and the animals that had just disappeared. So we all know intuitively in the environment that we have an ecosystem, we have a relationship. And what I want to make clear is the exact same thing takes place on all your pages. Split testing is looking at this item versus this item, headline A versus headline B in isolation. What we find over and over again, and I'll give you an example of this. Let me give you a real life example, and there's a lot of them. We see it daily. We had a client that was testing videos, video 1 versus video 2 versus video 3. Had that been all they do in a traditional split test, the control would have won. They would have seen 0 bounce from their videos that they put in. However, ultimately, video 2 with headline 3 and call to action 1 was the combination of events that gave them a 33% boost in conversions. So it's just really, it's not something that I've heard anybody talk about, but I think that what you need to understand when you do get into testing a page, that it's not in isolation. I mean, a perfect example of this is people will throw up images in a sales page without really giving thought, understanding that every part of that page matters. So a couple additional quick bonus mistakes that I will let you know. There's no separation. And we coined a term called semantic separation. I won't go down. I'm going to give people specifics as to how they can use this. And I think this would be a big one that anybody that's trying to put together a page, trying to put together an offer, or actually doing testing. If we ask, and we have, a professional copywriter write 10 headlines, what we end up getting is 10 of the same headlines. And we've done this with well-known names that you and most of your audience would know about. Why? They're hitting the same emotional buttons. And so this is why, back to item number 1 or item number 2, split testing, when people test, they're not testing things that are separated enough. And that's why they end up with 3, 4, maybe 5% increase in conversions, which means that it takes them too long. They need a lot of traffic to get in and out of the test. That's why the tests cross. And that's why when we're able to get 20, 30, 50, 100% there, those aren't going to cross, right? We have wide swings. It's part of the reason that split testing doesn't work. That doesn't mean we don't do split testing as part of what we're doing, but if people can take away from this semantic separation, so let me explain with a quick example. Let's use a avoid headline is going to do different than a greed headline, is going to do different than an authority headline, is going to do different than a story headline. These are completely different style headlines. If you take every product, every service has different value propositions, and most times people are guessing at those value propositions. So you can break this up further by value proposition. If we look at each one of those value propositions, and this is going to lead to the next, each one of these value propositions has different ways to dimensionalize it, different ways to show that. And so when you take your page or beforehand, you don't realize that all the different potential inputs you have for everything that you see on the page. And then you wonder why I put a page out there and I'm not succeeding. Large swings equal big wins. I mean, I think that the term that I've heard or that we've used from time to time is you want your tests to scream, not whisper. And most people, and they are just whispering. And so if you're thinking about this, think about, even if they take one takeaway, if they make a list of all your value propositions that you potentially have, hopefully through research, and break those down, and then you dimensionalize each one of those, you're going to end up with a huge list of potential variables that will get you closer to making traffic work. And then the last thing I want to show you here, and before we go in, the mistake is most, and this ties into what we're, most businesses we see have absolutely no clue how many variables they can and should test, and how much money they're leaving on the table by, even leaving, to your point at the beginning, leaving good offers that they didn't think were working on cold traffic, that were this close to working on cold traffic, that were this close to break even, one test away from break even, or one test away from profit and scale. So we believe and prove that everything you see on a page is a variable, everything can be tested. And so I had my guys throw this up, and this is a real client. I mean, this is just headlines from one offer. We literally, going through the I just explained, we created, I think in this case, like 300 different headlines. Will they all be tested? No, but where they'll be used in this particular case is as subheadlines. They will guide imagery. They will guide splash images. It carries throughout. But I wanted because I needed a way to illustrate when most people think testing, and I'm talking big companies and small there, they think, well, we had our guy write a new headline and the headline showing they're doing this, or we wrote a small new lead. And I want you to understand, if you take away nothing, to understand, and again, not to keep hammering this home, but even if you're not running cold traffic, this is important to you. Wherever you're running pages, you need to understand you're starting with basically a best guess. So I will promise just quickly, I'll show you how we get these results and then just give you some takeaways that I really hope that they can actually take with them, regardless of where they're at in the business. And I'll make this super fast.
That sounds great, Scott. Yeah, and we've got about 10 minutes, and so I think this is a perfect time to focus on, just processing some of this information, having some of those key high level takeaways would be great.
Okay, cool. So let me that's perfect. Let me just jump in and tell you that real quick, we're able to get a lot of data really fast, right? That was one key point that we had. We're able to test the relationship. We're talking about, when we talk about things like semantic separation, we're talking about a specific design of experiment that we teach that basically is that semantic separation, all the variables and making them different is just how we're able to do it. And we're able to do this without any code, meaning it's for us, it's a combination of technology plus knowledge and systems, but we want to give people things that they can do today. And so I think that the takeaways, some simple takeaways that we can give people is, number one, break down your page or pages, and everything you see is a potential variable. Your logo is a variable. Your navigation, should it be there or shouldn't it be there? The image, the hero image, paragraph 1 versus paragraph 2 versus paragraph 3. Everything is a variable. We have tested pre-sale pages where we never rewrote a pre-sale page and got 16-70% increases in actual sales because every paragraph was a variable. So I think the first takeaway is start looking at the pages you're putting together differently and break it down into all its pieces. Everything that you see, and I know this sounds simple, can and should be tested. I understand some people may not have the technology. You start somewhere. You have to understand if they have to start somewhere, my tip is top of fold. So take those variables in top of fold and just understand what's possible. And I don't care what tool you have, and even if it's not as sophisticated as we have, that doesn't matter. Start testing something. We talked about semantic separation. So think in terms of opposites. Think in terms of categories. I want to there's a lot of tools that we employ here, but I want to give your listeners a couple of things that they can do right now. We talked about this. Break down all your value propositions. That's the first thing we do after we get done with research. We usually end up for a flashlight with 6, 7 different potential value propositions. Value proposition being, what is the benefit the user sees in what you're offering? We always make an assumption. There are usually a lot of built-in benefits. And then break that down into, what does that look like? What does that benefit look like? And the last thing I'll say is, to constantly test and test often. So I went through that, and I talked a mile a minute. I hope that I was able to provide some value, but I'm open to any questions or any points of confusion or maybe objection that I didn't hit properly, or any more value that I can add. I'm more than happy to talk about.
Yeah, it's clearly very well thought out. Scott, you've been in the space for a while, and I think at least one big takeaway from myself personally listening to this is speed. You have the ability, when the dust kind of settles, you have the ability to test a lot more than what most people are used to testing, but you can do it very quickly. And what that allows people to do is find out what ultimately works, inevitably wherever their traffic's coming from. When it hits the things we can control, which is the ad, which is the site, those are the variables.
Yep.
We can in a very efficient way get to the thing that actually converts. And ultimately, I think that's the thing people want to hear is, I just need more sales. And so, hey, well, and if we liken this to anything, pick a famous painter, pick a singer or musician, pick an actor. Think about how many scenes an actor has done before they finally create kind of their masterpiece, or they win their Golden Globe, the Oscars, go to the Oscars.
You're asking the wrong guy, but I think you're on the right track.
hopefully people who are watching are with, following the train of thought though. It's the point is there's thousands and tens of thousands of iterations of going down that path. You're able to do that very quickly from an
Yep.
ad perspective, from a site perspective,
To put that in
headline,
perspective,
subheadline, etc.
I'm sorry, there, to put that in perspective, like one of our algorithms, we can take 4,300, the equivalent of over 4,300 split tests, and boil that down into a single. Now, I didn't want to make this about us who are there, but you are exactly right. And I want to add on one other point that you hit on beautifully, or two, is that it's all about data, right? I don't care there. It's all about buying that data so that you can improve. And the example that I use that's more, I guess, business related, and I love your example for Disney and film, because they usually take, I think it's 4 or 5 years to put out an animated film, and how much time. But I remember that Cindy Crawford had maybe she may or may not have now, but at one point they had through Gunther Renker the #1 skincare product on TV infomercial. And I remember that was losing money for 2 years until it became the biggest. Now, the nice thing here, and the reason I ask this is because people on the net feel that things should happen instant. And when they put something up and it doesn't work the first time they send 100 clicks to it, they're out. And I may be exaggerating, of course, here. I think that the takeaway is exactly what you said, that there are ways, and there's a way where you can get this data really quick without requiring a tremendous amount of traffic to get you from where you want to be, where you are now, to where you want to be, which ultimately is not only just having enough sales, but having enough sales to scale. And I'll add there, people that are having problems on Facebook right now are there. And I understand there's a broad spectrum and there's compliance in there, but really when you convert high enough, when you have he who converts the highest, who can afford to spend the most wins, we've all heard that, all those problems magically disappear because you're not at the whims of, okay, CPAs went a little bit up today or this week, meaning things got a little bit more expensive. So I think, but you hit it right on the money. It's all about how do we get smart fast so that we can make whatever we have work? And even if we're not paying for it, how can we make it work better? Because if we look at it like that leaky bucket, I mean, if you saw dollars flying out your window every time you sent an affiliate, to your list, I think that it would feel more real to you, right? But sometimes in our business, good enough is good enough. And so you have something that's working and don't realize how much more is being left on the table.
So powerful, so well said. So someone in a place where they don't want to see the dollars fly out the window, where's the best place to find you?
Is it cool if I share the screen real quick and I'll just show them? They can reach us at, just so we can sort of show you here. So I'll leave this up, but they can go to visiopt.com. That's VISIOPT.com. And I think the smartest way, because we're just now allowing, through application, but if people are interested in talking or just want more information, they can click on the case study link and then apply now. And don't worry, I'm not asking a ton of information there, just enough background to make sure that we're an appropriate fit. And if we're not, we will promise to help them out and leave them with more value and hopefully some wins, whether we ever work together or not, than when they started. So that would be just our little promise there. If somebody is unsure if it's appropriate for them or not, this isn't a high pressure sales call. We want to make sure that what you have fits in with our business model.
Perfect. So you can go there, visiopt.com. Just a little bit of information, the basic social security number, blood type, all and you're in. And
that's
so
really making it work. What was the
coordinates?
Collecting all your personal information and listening to your phone calls and
not a big deal. No, I appreciate your approach to people and which is part why we have you out. Here is because you connect with people in a real way. You're focused. I know you guys are looking for specific criteria to get a specific result, which is the win-win result, the desirable result for anyone that's working with you. And so, hey, if anyone can do it, you can. As we close, last question I like to ask is always to solve problems and to serve others and specifically businesses. It takes a lot. It takes a lot, and you're constantly got to be on your game. And my question comes down to why. I love to hear what drives people, why they get up, why they keep pushing, why they keep persevering. And so for you, I'm curious on what personally drives you to serve other people.
That's a great question. I wasn't expecting that. So I'll try to
I like to keep people on their toes.
That's great. I have always, first of all, just a little background on there, we've always been about business from the time I was, had my friends working for me and my parents drive me around cutting lawns. And so the time I got in trouble selling candy at school, and, you're pushing candy at school, these candy sticks that were there. And I had locker full of cash, quick story. I came in one day and we were connected to vocational, and the metal door was peeled off the, literally off the locker, looking for the money. But I have
wow.
That's a whole different story there. But I've always been passionate about selling, about business, and I really feel with Visiopt we found our calling, because I believe in what we're doing so much. It's really, and I don't want this to sound like hyperbole, but we see it changing lives and changing businesses. We see businesses struggling, focusing on the wrong thing. I see so much noise out there in the marketplace, and there are certainly different ways to do things, but I think people end up, businesses of all sizes, whether they're just starting out or they've been around, get spun around. And so I think our biggest passion is watching people being able to go from maybe not scaling on cold traffic to all of a sudden being able to scale, and watch that relaxation that comes over their face. Because there's something funny for all of us business owners, that when sales are pouring in, when things are going right, magically, the pressure doesn't mean we don't have things going on. The pressure goes down, right? It solves a lot of problems. So I don't know if that's a direct answer. We love seeing the changes we're able to make in people's businesses, and how that ultimately trickles down and affects everything from hopefully how they're able to get their passion out to the world and make a change in the world, to how it's affecting them personally and their families.
The right answer is the honest answer. Thanks for sharing exactly that, Scott. Appreciate you spending some time with us today and letting us know that there is another option to do an insane amount of testing, like pro status testing, in a very efficient, fast way to get just to get better results.
Yep.
So that we as business owners can expand the impact that we're making in the market. So appreciate your service. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. And Sales Ascender, thank you for watching and being a part of this journey with me, with us, with our whole community. Hey, know that being a business owner can be lonely, but it doesn't have to be. That's why you can come hang out on the spotlight, meet other business owners just like Scott, like myself, where we're doing this together. We're figuring it out, getting real results for real people. So thank you so much. We'll be back with some more great content. See you next time.